Now, simultaneously with that, since 2003, I started getting into the ageless wisdom teachings and meditation and the spiritual side of one's inner work. And in particular, the ageless wisdom teachings, they give a much bigger picture of history than anybody or anything that I've ever heard of. There may be other traditions that teach this as well. I'm sure there probably are, but we all, there are so many things that we can learn about, and we just come across what we need to come across. But these teachings, for me, set everything in perspective, and they gave me a lot of hope because they gave this bigger picture. And the analogy is that for most of us, we're down on the ground, say in New York, and we're just in a busy street, and all we can see is a few skyscrapers around us. We can't see beyond the road that we're on. Whereas if you get in the helicopter and you go up and you look down at the whole of New York, you see a much bigger vista. So these teachings give that bigger vista. And for me, that makes sense of things when I have the bigger vista. So when COVID hit, and I really believe that profound change has happened and is continuing to happen on the planet, whether people like it or not, or whether people realize it or not. First of all, there was, of course, all the hoo-ha of the lockdowns and then the hoo-ha of the vaccines coming in. But certain videos started to cross my path. I didn't particularly want to watch them, but people would send me things, and I'd somehow some e-news list, and I started watching quite a few videos about what's really going on in certain industries, whether it's big pharma, big agriculture, politics, banking, whatever. And I started to understand what I call physical plane reality or life in a different way. I started to see it in a different way, and I started to piece together the puzzle picture of how all these different industries, banking, big oil, climate, politics, pharmaceutical industry, how they're actually all interconnected. It's like joining the dots of those join the dot pictures that you used to do when you're 60 years old. And I started to understand things in a different light. Now, I know some people may already have done that, but I hadn't. And I know that some people still haven't. But for me, that was a profound awakening of sorts as to what is really going on in the world that most people have been, including myself, being completely oblivious to. Mm-hmm. Without even knowing it. And that's the thing with awareness, right? Is that we're not aware of what we're not aware of until we become aware. Mm-hmm. I hadn't been aware that, say, for example, I didn't know that that money is created out of nothing by the Federal Reserve. And then and then you go to a bank and you have to pay interest on being loaned this money that was created out of nothing. And all these people are making gazillions and billions and trillions of dollars. And this is why, a small percentage of people are super rich. And the whole history behind that of these people, these families who set up the whole system. I mean, it is lots and lots of rabbit holes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I started learning about what's going on and what has been going on for centuries that we just have not been told about or taught about in our history lessons. And just a lot of corruption, a lot of deception, a lot of greed, a lot of unseen planned plans, just quite extraordinary. And that really was quite shocking, to be quite honest. And I didn't really want to hear about it, but something drew me to learn about it. And then if one then looks, though, through the ageless wisdom teachings, for example, as to what is going on in the world over eons of times, and we're talking millions of years, we can actually understand why at this particular point right now, all this devastation, chaos, climate change, whatever you want to call it, whether it's real or manufactured, one starts to understand why it's all happening from a bigger picture perspective, in this bigger history of humanity, then we can start to understand it, and then that makes sense of why the world is in crisis right now, because it is in crisis, and every area of life is in crisis, and it just seems to be getting worse. But there is hope. There is huge hope, but the thing is, we have to play the biggest part to make things change. Just like when we're sick, and this is where this correlation keeps coming back to, this correlation of what happens in an individual is the same as what's happening collectively, which is the macrocosm and the microcosm. Is when we're sick, if we get sick, rather than just trying to put a plaster on it with some medication or some surgery, we've got to look at, why did the body go out of balance and get sick? And what do I need to do to bring myself back to balance? And of course, this is what we have to do collectively now. When we understand this bigger picture, and know what to do about it, then we can solve our problems, or at least go in the direction of solving our problems.
Yes, I really appreciate this elevated view and seeing how all the dots are connected, and recognizing this collective mission and this collective creation of the vision that we want to have, and seeing what is, and seeing what we can create together.